I was never the superstitious type. I think up until that day, I lived a pretty normal life, work, home, binge-watching shows on weekends, that sort of thing. But everything changed one Wednesday morning when I got a notification from Facebook. At first glance, it didn't seem unusual. Reminder, today marks 3 years since this post. I clicked on it without much thought, expecting to see some random photo from a birthday or an old trip. But it wasn't any of that. It was a picture of a marriage proposal. The problem? I had never proposed to my girlfriend. And more unsettling, the date of the post was for next Valentine's Day, months away. I showed Clara right away, trying to make a joke out of it. Looks like we've already got plans set for the future. I said, half laughing, half uncomfortable. But she didn't find it funny. In fact, she went pale, as if she'd seen a ghost. She grabbed my phone and started analyzing the image, zooming in to look at the details. The photo showed a small velvet box open with a ring inside, and in the background, there was a restaurant table decorated with rose petals. So far, nothing too strange, romantic even. But what chilled us to the bone was the reflection in the glass behind the table. It was our faces, but we weren't alone. Next to her stood a dark, indistinct silhouette, like someone standing there watching. We decided to ignore it at first, of course. It's probably just a Facebook glitch, I said, trying to sound confident as I slid my phone back into my pocket. But Clara wasn't convinced. She kept staring at the screen for a long time, as if waiting for something else to appear. "Have you ever seen this restaurant before?" she asked, pointing to the rose petals and the details of the table. I shook my head, but something about it bothered me. I had seen that place before. I didn't know where or when, but something about that image felt familiar, like a distant echo of a memory I couldn't quite access. We tried to forget about it and moved on with our day, but that strange feeling lingered. Later that night, we were sitting on the couch watching a show when her phone buzzed. It was another notification, this time on Instagram. When she opened it, we both froze. It was the same photo, but now it had a caption, "Finally together forever." The post had been made on her account, but neither of us had posted it. And the worst part? In the comments, there was a single reply from a profile with no picture and a generic name, "I'm looking forward to the big day." My heart raced. I tried to rationalize it, saying someone must have hacked our accounts, but Clara started crying quietly. She swore she'd never seen that profile before, and something in her tone made me feel like we were about to face something much bigger than we could understand. That night was torture. We couldn't focus on the TV, the image of that comment kept replaying in my mind like a sinister echo. "I'm looking forward to the big day." Who had written that? And why did it feel so personal, so directed at us? Clara didn't even want to look at her phone anymore, so I offered to investigate. I went into the settings of our social media accounts, checked the login logs, and even changed our passwords, but everything seemed normal. Except for one thing, the post was gone. There was no trace of it on Clara's Instagram or Facebook. It was as if it had never existed. But we both knew it wasn't our imagination. The next day, we tried to go about our routines as usual, but something felt off. During breakfast, I noticed Clara was acting strange, distracted. When I asked what was wrong, she hesitated before answering. "I dreamed about that restaurant," she whispered. It was exactly like in the photo, even the rose petals. But, there was someone there. Someone I couldn't quite see, sitting at our table. She started trembling as she spoke, and I felt a chill run up my spine. I tried to calm her down, saying it was probably just stress or something, but deep down, I was scared too. Because that same night, I had also dreamed about the restaurant. And in my dream, the silhouette next to her was clearer, and it seemed to be watching me. From that moment on, everything started to feel wrong. Not just the dreams or the mysterious posts, but little details around us. Things that used to be normal now seemed charged with hidden meanings. For example, I once found a red rose petal on the floor of the car, even though there were no flowers nearby. Another time, Clara swore she heard someone whisper her name while we were alone at home. And to make matters worse, we started noticing a strange smell, something like incense or old perfume, that would appear out of nowhere and disappear minutes later. We tried to convince ourselves it was all in our heads, but it was impossible to ignore. A week later, we received another notification. This time, it was an event created on Facebook, The Big Day. The description simply read, "You promised you'd be there." The location was the exact restaurant from the photo, and the date was next Valentine's Day. My stomach churned when I realized the event had been confirmed by both of us, but neither of us had accepted it. When I tried to delete the event, it reappeared a few minutes later. Clara was hysterical, saying we should delete our social media accounts and never look at them again. But something stopped me from doing that. I needed to understand what was happening, even if it meant diving deeper into this madness. I decided we needed help. We went to a mutual friend's house, someone I thought we could talk to without sounding completely crazy. He was good with technology and might be able to help us figure out if our accounts had been hacked or something. When we showed him the screenshots of the notifications and the event, he frowned, clearly uncomfortable. "This doesn't make sense," he said, typing furiously on his laptop. "The posts aren't there anymore, but the metadata, they don't match. It's like they were created by someone else, using your accounts." He paused before continuing, "But that's impossible. To do something like this, someone would need physical access to your phones." That information only heightened our paranoia. We went back home even more frightened, trying to make sense of what was happening. That night, while Clara slept on the couch, she was too scared to go to the bedroom anymore. I decided to take one last look at my phone's settings. That's when I noticed something strange. There were photos in the gallery that I didn't remember taking. Photos of the restaurant. Photos of the table with the rose petals. And in all of them, that dark silhouette appeared in the background, getting clearer each time. The last photo made my blood run cold. It was the same image of the proposal, but this time the silhouette was sitting at the table with us, holding the ring between its fingers. And next to the photo, there was a new caption written in white letters, "I've always been here." The next morning, Clara and I decided we couldn't stay in that house anymore. We packed some clothes, documents, and anything essential, and went to stay with a relative in another city. We didn't tell them the real reason for the move, we just said we needed some time away. For weeks, everything seemed normal. No strange notifications, no unexplained smells, no disturbing dreams. We even started to think maybe we had imagined it all, or that it was some cruel prank by someone we knew. But something inside me knew it wasn't over. On Valentine's Day, I woke up with a strange feeling in my chest. Clara was still sleeping next to me, so I decided to make breakfast to try to shake off the unease. When I came back to the room with the tray, she was sitting up in bed, pale and trembling. On the nightstand, there was a small red package. Inside it was a ring identical to the one in the photo. And next to the ring, a handwritten note, "Happy Valentine's Day. I hope you're happy together." We never found out who left it there. To this day, whenever I see a rose petal or catch that smell of incense, I wonder if it was real, or if we're still trapped in some kind of nightmare that never ended. I always thought I had already dealt with my grief. Gabriel, my ex-boyfriend, passed away in a car accident last year, and since then, I tried to move on as best as I could. Of course, there were still days when I missed him, especially the little things, like his habit of humming while driving or that clumsy way he had of trying to cook something without burning half the kitchen. But I was fine, or at least I thought I was until that day at the office. It was a normal Tuesday, at least until the receptionist appeared at my desk with a box wrapped in red paper and a note taped to the top, "To Claire, with love. Gabriel." My heart stopped. It couldn't be him. I opened the note with trembling hands, expecting it to be some kind of cruel joke or maybe something sent by someone from his family to remind me of him in some way. But no, the handwriting was unmistakable, that slanted, hurried scrawl that I knew so well. Inside the note, there was just one short sentence: "I thought you'd like to have this back." My mind started spinning. How was this possible? He was dead. I had been to the funeral, had seen the casket being closed. It was impossible for him to have sent this. And yet, there was the box, heavy and cold in my hands. The entire office seemed to be watching me as I tried to decide what to do. In the end, curiosity got the better of me. I tore the paper slowly, almost afraid of what I might find inside. When I opened the box, my heart stopped. Inside was a necklace, a star-shaped pendant that I had lost years ago. It was a simple object, but it meant a lot to me because Gabriel had given it to me. He knew how much I loved stargazing when we were teenagers, and that necklace was a reminder of that. I never understood how it disappeared. I searched for months, rummaged through drawers, boxes, and even the car, but never found it. And now, there it was, shining as if it were new. But what really chilled me was that no one else knew how much that necklace meant to me. Not even my best friend knew the story behind it. Only Gabriel did. I picked up the necklace carefully, as if it might disappear at any moment. There was something strange about its weight, as if it carried more than just the metal and the memory. As I held it, I noticed another note folded at the bottom of the box. With my hands trembling even more, I unfolded the paper and read, "I've always taken good care of it for you." The handwriting was the same as the first note. My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't rationalize this. How could he have found the necklace? More importantly, how could he have sent it if he was dead? I looked around the office, half expecting to see someone laughing or admitting it was a cruel prank, but everyone was busy with their own tasks. No one seemed to be paying attention to me. Or maybe, they were avoiding looking. I went home that day with the feeling that something was following me. There was no logic to what had happened, and that made me even more uneasy. On the way, I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, as if expecting to see someone sitting in the back seat. When I got home, I locked all the doors and windows, something I hadn't done in years. I placed the necklace on the living room table, too afraid to touch it again. I stared at that star for a long time, trying to understand what it all meant. Was someone trying to play a trick on me? But who would know so much about me and about Gabriel? Later, while preparing dinner, I noticed something strange, the smell of his cologne. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but I knew that scent as well as I knew his voice. He had used the same cologne ever since we met, and I hadn't smelled it since the funeral. I stopped what I was doing and looked around, but the kitchen was empty. The scent grew stronger for a few seconds before disappearing completely. I went back to the living room and saw the necklace where I had left it, but now something was different. The note that had been inside the box was next to it, with a new sentence written on it: "You've always been my star." That handwriting, it was his. I knew it was. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch, with the lights on, staring at that necklace as if it might explode at any moment. I tried calling a few people, mutual friends, even Gabriel's mom, but no one answered. It was as if the whole world was isolating me, forcing me to face this alone. Around 3 in the morning, I heard a noise coming from the bedroom. A soft creak, as if someone were walking slowly on the wooden floor. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I grabbed my phone, ready to call the police, but something stopped me. Maybe it was fear, maybe it was curiosity. Or maybe deep down, I already knew who, or what, was there. I tiptoed to the bedroom, trying not to make a sound. When I opened the door, everything seemed normal. The bed was made, the windows closed. But then I noticed something strange. The nightstand next to the bed was different. There was a framed photograph there, something I had stored away in a drawer years ago. It was a picture of me and Gabriel, taken on a summer night when we went camping. We were both laughing, with the sky full of stars behind us. But there was something wrong with the image. In the photo, he was holding the necklace I had just received. But I knew that picture was taken before he gave me the necklace. Before he even bought it. How was this possible? And why, when I looked at the photo, did I feel like he was watching me? I returned to the living room completely shaken, not knowing what to think or do. I took the necklace and locked it inside a drawer, as if that would stop anything strange from happening again. But no matter how much I tried to convince myself that it was all just a product of my imagination or some absurd coincidence, I knew it wasn't true. The smell of his cologne lingered in the air, stronger now, and I could feel his presence in every corner of the house. That's when I noticed something even scarier. The clock in the living room, which had been broken for months, started working on its own. The hands spun rapidly until they stopped at 3:17, exactly the time he had died in the accident. I couldn't stand being there anymore. I grabbed my keys and ran out of the house, not even looking back. I drove aimlessly through the deserted streets, trying to organize my thoughts. When I finally stopped at a gas station, I noticed something on the passenger seat that made my blood run cold, a red rose petal, something he always gave me when he wanted to apologize. But this time, next to the petal, there was another folded note. With trembling hands, I opened the paper and read, "I never wanted to leave you." That sentence was the last straw. I knew I needed to tell someone, but who would believe me? Who could understand what was happening? I decided to go to Gabriel's mother's house the next morning. She was the only person who might give me some answers, even though I didn't really know what I was looking for. When I got there, she greeted me with a tight hug, but I noticed something strange in her eyes, as if she already knew why I was there. I told her everything about the box, the necklace, the notes, and the events of the previous night. She listened in silence, her hands trembling as she held a cup of tea. When I finished, she sighed deeply and said something that confused me even more. "He always loved you more than anything in the world. I think he's trying to say that again." That answer didn't make sense to me, but before I could ask more, she handed me an old letter that had been stored in a drawer. It was a letter Gabriel had written to her shortly before the accident. In it, he said he felt that something bad was about to happen, but he wanted to make sure I would be okay if something happened to him. He mentioned the necklace and said he had kept something special for me, something I would find when the time was right. I didn't understand how any of this was possible, but as I read those words, I felt as if he were there beside me, trying to comfort me. Since then, I haven't seen or heard anything strange again. But sometimes, when I look at the necklace, I smell that same cologne in the air. And I know he's still nearby. I woke up with that strange feeling that something wasn't right, as if the air in the room was heavier. The smell was the first thing that hit me, a strong, sweet, but at the same time nauseating perfume that I had never smelled before. It was coming from the pillow next to mine. You know that feeling when you realize something is out of place, but you can't figure out why? Well, I had slept alone the night before, like I always do, so that smell just didn't make sense. My heart started racing as I tried to rationalize it, thinking maybe someone had been there and left the scent, but who would do that? And why? I grabbed my phone from the nightstand to check the time, and almost dropped it when I saw a notification for a message. An unknown number had sent me something. With trembling hands, I opened the message. "I enjoyed last night. Happy our day." My mind froze. I knew it was Valentine's Day, but I didn't have plans with anyone, nor was I in a relationship. I stared at those words for a good few minutes, trying to understand what the hell was going on. The message felt intimate, personal, as if it came from someone who genuinely thought they had spent the night with me. But I knew that was impossible. Or was it? A chill ran down my spine that wouldn't leave me. I sat frozen on the bed for a few minutes, trying to piece together what might have happened. Had I drunk too much the night before and simply forgotten everything? But no, I had spent the evening at home, calm, watching a game on TV and eating frozen pizza, alone. There was no way anyone had been there. I got up slowly, still a bit groggy, and went to the kitchen to get a glass of water. Everything seemed normal. The dirty dishes from the night before were still piled in the sink, the fan remote was tossed on the couch, and the front door was locked from the inside. Nothing out of place. But that smell, it was stronger now, lingering in the air as if it were coming from every corner of the apartment. I went back to the bedroom and started rummaging through my things, looking for any sign of something strange. I opened the closet, looked under the bed, even checked the bathroom. Nothing. That's when I realized the phone was still in my hand, and I decided to call the number that had sent the message. It rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. The voice that answered was female, but it didn't say anything beyond the standard "hello" before hanging up. The sound of that voice sent a shiver up my spine. It was as if I'd heard it before, but I couldn't remember where. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to steady my breathing, but my heart felt like it was about to leap out of my chest. I decided I needed to get out of that apartment, even if just for a few hours. Maybe some fresh air would help clear my head. Before leaving, I locked all the doors and windows again, double-checking just to be sure everything was secure. On the way to the elevator, I noticed the smell seemed stronger in the hallway too, as if it were following me. I shook my head, trying to shake off that absurd thought. It was just my imagination, right? When I got into the elevator, I pressed the button for the ground floor, but it didn't light up. I tried again, and nothing. That's when I felt something behind me, a presence almost tangible, though I was clearly alone in there. I turned quickly, but there was no one. I bolted down the stairs, not even thinking straight about what I was doing. When I finally reached the street, I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. The cold morning air seemed to help, but even so, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I walked aimlessly for a while, trying to organize my thoughts. I thought about calling a friend, but what would I say? That I woke up to a strange perfume and a bizarre message from someone I didn't know? It would sound insane. So, after some time, I decided to go back home, thinking maybe it was all just a mistake, a cruel prank. But when I got to the building, something even stranger happened. When I entered the lobby, the doorman greeted me with an awkward smile and said, "Your visitor already went up. I let her in a few minutes ago." I froze, not understanding anything. What visitor? I wasn't expecting anyone. Before I could ask more, he added, "That woman, the same one from last night." My head started spinning. What woman? What did he mean by, "the same one from last night"? I hadn't had any visitors in days. I tried to question him further, but he just shrugged, saying she was pretty, blonde, and seemed really excited to see me. I ran up the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. When I reached my floor, I realized the door to my apartment was slightly ajar, even though I was certain I had locked it when I left. I pushed the door open slowly, trying to make as little noise as possible. The smell of perfume was unbearable now, so strong it almost made me vomit. I tiptoed inside, looking around, but everything seemed exactly as I had left it. Except for one thing, on the living room couch, there was a red dress neatly folded, as if waiting for me. It was an expensive dress, made of shiny fabric, and I had never seen it before in my life. I grabbed my phone to take a picture, but the screen froze suddenly. When I finally managed to unlock it, I saw another message from the same unknown number. "Did you like the gift? I thought it suited you." I didn't know what to do. I stood in the middle of the room, staring at that dress as if it might come to life at any moment. My mind was a mess, trying to find some logical explanation for everything, but the more I thought about it, the more confused I became. I picked up the dress with my fingertips, as if it were dirty or dangerous, and placed it on the kitchen table. There was nothing in the pockets, no note, nothing that gave me a clue as to who might have left it there. I went back to the living room and started pacing, trying to decide what to do next. I called the doorman again, asking for more details about this supposed visitor, but he only said that she seemed normal, even friendly, and had gone upstairs smiling. That's when I heard a noise coming from the bedroom. It sounded like someone was rummaging through the drawers. My whole body froze. I was alone in the apartment, or at least, that's what I thought. I grabbed the baseball bat I keep by the door and slowly walked toward the bedroom, trying to control my breathing. When I reached the door, I pushed it open quickly, ready to face whatever was inside. But the room was empty. The drawers were open, ransacked, as if someone had been searching for something in a hurry. And, in the middle of the bed, there was a single red rose, fresh, with drops of water still on its petals. But I hadn't bought any roses. I didn't even have a vase at home to put it in. That rose seemed to stare at me, like a silent message I couldn't decipher. I was shaking so much I had to sit on the edge of the bed to keep from collapsing. My phone buzzed again, and for a moment, I thought about not looking. But something made me pick it up. It was another message from the same number. "You don't like flowers? I thought you would." My head was pounding, and the smell of perfume seemed to have invaded every molecule of air in the apartment. I needed to get out of there, but at the same time, I couldn't move. That's when I noticed something even stranger. The rose was changing color. Yes, it was turning black, right before my eyes, as if it were dying at high speed. I ran out of the bedroom, trying to rationalize what I had just seen. Maybe it was some kind of chemical reaction, something I didn't understand. But deep down, I knew that was impossible. I grabbed my keys and decided to go to the police station to report everything. No matter how crazy it might sound, something was very wrong. But when I opened the apartment door, I found a note taped to the doorknob. It read, "Don't leave. We still have so much to celebrate." My hand trembled so much the paper fell to the floor. I looked around the hallway, but there was no one. I went back inside, locking the door quickly, and sat on the couch, trying to figure out how my life had turned into this nightmare in a matter of hours. I couldn't think straight anymore. Every sound, no matter how small, made me jump. The ticking of the clock on the wall, the wind hitting the window, even the hum of the refrigerator felt like it was watching me. I sat on the couch for what felt like an eternity, trying to decide what to do. I called a few friends, but no one answered. I sent desperate messages, explaining everything, but they went unanswered. It was as if I were trapped in some kind of bubble where only I and that strange presence existed. That's when I heard footsteps coming from the hallway. They were soft, almost inaudible, but they were there, echoing through the apartment as if someone were pacing back and forth. I got up slowly, trying to figure out where the sounds were coming from. They seemed to be coming from the kitchen. I grabbed the baseball bat again and tiptoed toward it. When I reached the doorway, I saw something that froze me in place. The drawers that had been ransacked earlier were now perfectly organized, as if they had never been touched. And in the center of the table, there was a plate of food, instant noodles, exactly what I had eaten the night before. The only difference was that the fork was placed next to the plate, as if someone had just finished eating and left it there for me. But I hadn't eaten anything except frozen pizza. And I definitely wasn't alone in that kitchen. I couldn't think straight anymore. The scene in front of me was so absurd that my brain simply refused to process it. I stood there, gripping the bat so tightly that my hands started to hurt. The air was heavy, almost suffocating, and that perfume smell had become part of me, as if I would never be able to get rid of it. Suddenly, I heard a low laugh coming from behind me. It wasn't a normal laugh, it was soft, almost a whisper, but it echoed as if coming from multiple directions at once. I spun around quickly, but there was no one there. The living room was empty, except for me and that strange plate on the kitchen table. I started to feel like I was losing control. My legs were shaking so much that I had to lean against the wall to keep from collapsing. I decided I couldn't stay there another second. I ran to the door, opened it, and bolted down the stairs, not even bothering to take the elevator. When I finally reached the street, I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. But when I looked back, I saw something that made my blood run cold. All the windows of my apartment were lit up, as if someone had turned on every light. And in one of the bedroom windows, there was a female silhouette, standing still, watching me. But I had left everything off when I left. Before I could react, the silhouette disappeared, and the lights turned off by themselves. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, staring at the dark windows of my apartment. My whole body was trembling, and I could barely breathe properly. That silhouette, it had seemed so real, so present, that I couldn't believe I had imagined it all. I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? That a mysterious woman broke into my apartment, left a dress and a rose, ate instant noodles, and then disappeared? It would sound insane. I decided to go to a friend's house, someone I trusted, to try to clear my head. But as I walked through the deserted streets, I noticed something strange. The smell of perfume was still with me. It wasn't just a memory or something in my mind, it was there, following me, as if it had become part of the air I was breathing. I arrived at my friend's house completely shaken. He greeted me, clearly alarmed by how distressed I was. I told him everything that had happened, trying to be as clear as possible, but he just looked at me with a worried expression. He said I should go back to the apartment in the morning, when I was calmer, and call the police if necessary. I stayed there for a few hours, but I couldn't relax for even a second. When I finally decided to go back home, it was almost dawn. I entered the apartment slowly, expecting to find something out of place, but everything was exactly as I had left it. Except for one thing, the phone was on the living room table, with one last message on the screen. Happy Valentine's Day. See you next year. That message was the final straw. I couldn't think of anything else but getting out of there as fast as possible. I grabbed some clothes, documents, and anything essential I could stuff into a backpack and spent the night at my friend's house. He tried to calm me down, saying it might have been some kind of cruel prank or even a hacker messing with me. But I knew it wasn't just that. The smell, the objects, the silhouette, everything felt too real to be made up. I stayed away from the apartment for days, but when I finally gathered the courage to go back, everything was normal. Nothing out of place, no trace of what had happened. Even the perfume smell had vanished. I never received another message from that number, and no one in the building could tell me who the blonde woman the doorman had seen was. I moved to a new apartment shortly after, unable to keep sleeping there. Sometimes, I still catch that perfume smell in the most random places, as if it's following me. And every time Valentine's Day comes around, I feel uneasy, waiting for something strange to happen again. I've never told this story to anyone besides my friend because I know it sounds crazy. But to this day, I can't explain what really happened that day. Maybe I never will.